Hey, what's going on everyone? Hawks21 here, back with another Splinterlands video. So I've gotten a couple questions about my take on the whole bot conversation. And I haven't really said much because honestly I don't have any like strong opinions or hot takes or anything. But I do have some thoughts, so I figured I'll just make a video to share it. I don't really have much in terms of background anything, so what I thought I would do was just play some top battles from the Champion League. Obviously these battles are super interesting. I'm not really going to talk about them. I'm just going to have them running in the background just for something for you guys to watch. If you don't know, at any time you can come to this tab right here, hit top battles, pick the lead, and I don't know how they determine what's a top battle or not, but anytime I've come and watched these, they're always really interesting battles, so that'll just be on in the background. Well, this conversation is going to be focused on bots, but before we get into that, if you're new here, my name is Hawks21 and I cover Splinterlands almost every single day. I absolutely love this game. I've been making content for it for about 6 months now, and if you end up enjoying this video or learning anything new, it would be awesome if you could like and subscribe. We are starting to build a really strong community over here and I want to keep the momentum going. All right, let's get into it. So, I already know I'm going to be distracted by doing this, but I want to have you guys watch something. So we're going to start at the top, and you need to take Splinterlands, sort of take on bots and like make it your reality, right? There's no real point in talking about bots. Like, you can't really have a functional conversation unless you accept Splinterlands' reality for bots, because they have stated this from the beginning. This is how they're going to approach bots, and they're not going to change that. And here's what it basically is they are okay with bots. What they are not okay with is bots sort of exploiting the system in a way a human player couldn't. Right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that even if a bot is doing that, the bot or the account is going to get banned. And I'm going to get more into this later. What it basically means is they have made a commitment to change the system, if that's occurring, to disincentivize bots from taking advantage of the system however they were doing it. So that's the reality. It doesn't really matter my opinion on it or your opinion on it, to be frank. That's how Splinterlands is approaching bots. They've been very clear about that from day one. And to be honest, right, their take makes sense. It's that we're supposed to be a decentralized game. If you have a centralized figure who's sort of deciding or guessing which accounts are bots and trying to ban accounts you think are running bots, you're never going to be able to do that with 100% accuracy. And what that does is create a centralized authority that is determining who can and can't play the game. And they don't want to do that. Again, you could have an opinion on that. It doesn't really matter what your opinion is. It doesn't really matter what my opinion is. You just have to accept that as reality. And you have to talk about the game in that reality and what are changes we can make within that reality to improve Splinterlands as a whole. So starting from that high level, the first thing we need to cover is when you're talking about sort of the broad bots conversation, there's two different types of bots, I would say. The first is bot farms, and the second is sort of the high level bots that, sorry, I'm already getting distracted by doing this. But the second is sort of the high level bots that people are using to play up into Diamond, play up into Champion, etc. That I don't really know how to describe them, but they're almost like, I don't want to call them intelligent, but just like strategy-based bots that the main purpose isn't to just farm rewards, it's to move into high leagues and sort of like get daily rewards that way, in a way of like building an account. So let's start with bot farms. Bot farms are bad. And Splinterlands knows this, and Splinterlands is doing things to disincentivize bot farms. Basically, why bot farms are bad are they are coming in, not putting any money into the game, playing all day long. They're historically have been playing their ECRs down to 0, get their reward cards, get their season end cards, immediately throw them on the market and sell. That's why we have so many cards that are up for a penny, right? It's not because there's this huge flux of human players that are dying to sell their reward cards for a penny. It's from these bot farms that are running, hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands maybe of accounts that play every single day, crush their ECR, and then toss all their reward cards up for the lowest possible price and keep doing it. So, there is a little bit of a value there. They're making a tiny bit of money, and it allows new players to buy cards for really, really cheap. That's great. But long term, that doesn't create a sustainable system, right? Because as soon as, another opportunity opens up, the people who are running these farms will move to a different game, right? You've seen that across the ecosystem where people who run bots find the game that can be, exploited the easiest, and that's where they put all of their time and attention. And they don't really have any stake in the matter because they're not buying cards, right? What they do is they rent cards, or they've bought a little bit of power and they just run them nonstop. They're not increasing their investment of the game. Their main purpose is to take money out of the game. So bot farms, bad. I think most people agree with that. I'll get into some of the changes Splinterlands has made, to help combat this a little bit. But most people are in agreement, I would say, that the bot farms that aren't investing money into the game and are just sucking the economy dry, specifically at the lowest levels, are bad for the game and the ecosystem. Again, remember the reality. Splinterlands isn't going to ban these accounts, right? It's just not going to happen. But what we can talk about is changes they could make to the game to disincentivize this behavior, which we will get to in a second. The other type of bots is the high-level bots, is what I'll call them. These are the bots where people are running their accounts to win as many battles as possible, basically. The idea of these bots is they're gameplay bots. So they have some programming that allows them to play the game at a really high level, win a bunch of matches, move you to higher leagues, collect a bunch of rewards along the way. This is a different conversation because running these bots, for the most part, requires investment. You can't just run these bots with tiny little bits of power, right? You can't. You'll lose. They're not like miracle bots that will win you any match. They are based on previous human battles and looking at that data and seeing what lineups win in certain situations. If that account doesn't have the cards to play for that situation, the bot's not going to win, right? And in general, right, it's based on previous human games, so their behavior is somewhat predictable. For example, you'll see chess pros very frequently beat chess bots. And that's because they know how bots behave based on the, millions and billions of chess games that bots have taken in. I have less of a problem with these bots. And I'll say there's one caveat to this, but in normal ranked play, I don't really care about these bots. And the main reason is that these accounts are investing a ton of money into the game. And that is good for the economy and good for the ecosystem, right? Again, these accounts have to spend thousands of dollars to build an account that can then utilize these bots to play in Diamond and play in Champion. It's not just like someone buys a spell book, runs this bot, and all of a sudden they're in Champion. It was easier to do previously before they made some of the changes to the rental market and stuff, and you were seeing that, someone could basically rent their daily splinter every day, run it through a high level bot, and sort of push up to the higher leagues. So they are making changes. But again, in general, if someone wants to spend a bunch of money to build an account, spend a bunch of money to run a bot that is super sophisticated, I have no problem with that in the sort of modern ranked day-to-day gameplay. Where I do have a problem with this, and I think Weirdbeard has talked about this previously, if we start getting super high level tournaments with super big prize pools or like a pro Splinterlands circuit, that's where these high level bots can become a problem, right? And I'm sure some people would disagree with that, but the excitement and the fun of, watching people play these games at a high level is just kind of watching the decision-making process, right? If all of that's automated and a bot's gonna, a bot's probably not gonna win every single time, because again, really great human players in this game will frequently beat bots. But if you have a top 10 in a tournament that gets big prize payouts, and let's say 4 of them or 5 of them are accounts that run bots, that removes some of the excitement from the game, right? Because part of what makes the circuit fun, or these high level tournaments fun, is, having a favorite player. Maybe you love Bulldog or Infidel or, Aftersound, whoever it is. Maybe it's me. And you're trying to root for them. It's better for the game and the ecosystem if players like that are winning these tournaments, or, there's tons of great players that the community knows that don't make content, right? Who are super, super sophisticated players. We want them to win those tournaments. We want them to finish high in those tournaments. Or we want another human player to beat them, right? Like, who is this human that just beat them? It's a little anticlimactic if you're building out this tournament or pro scene, and some of these human players that everyone loves keep getting eliminated by bots. So that's kind of where my reservation lies about these bots. Me coming up against them every time I hit battle when I'm playing, 30 battles on a random day, that doesn't really bother me, right? I beat them half the time probably. I'm getting a battle constantly, and I know these accounts I'm going against are investing a ton of money into this game. So that's sort of my take on the differences between the two. Sum it up, bot farms I think are really bad. High level bots, I think in most instances are totally fine, and in some ways improve the ecosystem. But when it comes to building a competitive circuit, or we have tournaments right now. If you go to the events tab, they added back in some of the Splinterlands tournaments. Nice. They had taken these out for a while, but if we have tournaments eventually that you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Like right now we're talking way less than that. Like all of these tournaments, the prize pools equal 18K, which is obviously not insignificant at all. You have some of these big ones for $2,000, but at some point the goal is for this to end up being like 10 grand, 50 grand tournaments. So if you have bots in that case who are super sophisticated, I see the problem, and hopefully they find a way to keep them from participating in tournaments or events, or find some system. But that remains to be seen. So I've sort of hinted at it throughout the video, but the developers have basically taken it upon themselves to handle the bot problem. And what I mean by that is they're basically saying we're gonna, when bots find an exploit, bots are allowed to keep running that exploit over and over and over again until we fix it. So most recently, right, there was kind of an exploit where, and some human players are doing this as well, but if you had a bunch of accounts, you would just play your ECR to 0 in a certain account, send it to a new account, be able to send cards to a new account, play that down to 0, send it to another account, play that down to 0. And you could basically, with either through rentals or, having a couple cards in your deck that you keep passing around between a couple accounts, you could sort of leverage what you were investing into the game into like massive returns. And they covered that loophole, right? With the 2-day rental system, the updates to ECR, they've said, all right, that was an exploit we don't want anymore. We're going to fix it. And I kind of respect that take, right? It's almost like if you find an exploit, okay, take advantage of it while you can, but, this is dumb. We're going to fix this. And, they've done this a bunch. It's not like they sit there and let an exploit happen. They very actively try to combat these. And you've seen it, right? I just mentioned the 2-day rental system. It is a lot harder now between the 2-day rental system and the rewards, and the update to the reward system that just came out yesterday, where you can now not play, or you're not guaranteed to get a splinter every single time, and the amount of different focuses they added. So, previously, if you got a life splinter, you knew you were going to get a life splinter option every single battle you played. So you could just rent a deck for a day and spam life over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Now, even if you do get a life focus, which is far less likely with all the new additions, one, you're not guaranteed to get it every battle. So if you rent a bunch of life cards, or like rent a max level life deck, you're going to have battles where you only get to pick between fire and water, and you can't play all the cards you just rented. Now, if I get a life daily focus, I'm still going to rent some life cards to help sort of boost my performance, but I can't rely on just that. Also, I have to rent it for 2 days, right? So if you're spending 1,000 DEC to rent a life deck, and you plan on playing a couple days in a row, you have to pay for 2-day rentals. So 1,000 DEC becomes 2,000 DEC that I have to spend, or whatever the number is. Also, the ECR updates, right? So now, if you haven't heard, if you play a game when your ECR is below 50%, it goes down by 5%. So that was really coming at the bot farms that are playing all of their accounts down to 0 all day long, something that a human can't do, because that's the big thing they look at is, are bots doing something that humans can't do? So now, if they get under 50, they're able to play way less games before their ECR gets down to 0, basically. And so that makes it way less advantageous for these bot farms. Previously, right, we've seen them adjust cooldown rates. So it makes it more difficult to rent cards, send cards around, delegate cards, so you can run multiple accounts without actually having to purchase or rent cards, spend the money to actually do that across multiple accounts, right? You can't just have the cards for one account and pass those cards around to all your accounts because of all these cooldown rates. Also the ghost cards, right? So like bots now, you at least have to buy level 1 cards or rent some period of or some types of cards because of the changes they made to their reward payouts from the ghost cards. So they're actively combating bots. I'm going to wrap this up now. Basically, just to recap, 1, you have to accept their bot policy for what it is. Bots are not going to be banned. They took it upon themselves to basically say, if bots have found an exploit, it is our job to cover that exploit. And they are actively sort of making changes to the game to disincentivize bot behavior and incentivize longer-term player behavior. I think that's really, really important to understand because some people are complaining that they're getting less rewards from some of these changes that are being put in. And that's because, again, this game isn't about short-term rewards. It's about being here for a while, joining the community, joining the ecosystem, playing the game, and sort of grinding out, earning cards that are a penny, where, once we get another growth in player base, become worth more than a penny, right? But that takes some time. It's not something that happens overnight. And the people who are trying to profit overnight, who can do it successfully, are generally the bot farms. So as a whole, disincentivizing that behavior disincentivizes bot farms. And that's point number 2. Bot farms aren't good. They don't put money into the game. They sort of just suck the economy dry, specifically at the lower levels. So newer players are the most disadvantaged from a gameplay perspective by these bot farms. The one pro is they sell their cards for a penny, so new players can buy cards for a penny. The other type of bot, the high level sort of intelligent, I guess, playing bots, I have less of a problem with. Generally, these are accounts that have invested a ton of money into the game. So, and if you're going to come in and run one of these bots, you have to spend thousands of dollars on cards to play at the highest levels. I do have a problem with those bots in tournaments in competitive settings. So in the daily modern ranked stuff, I don't really care at all. But if we're going to build a competitive scene or like really high level tournaments, then these bots sort of become a problem for helping to build out that ecosystem. And then 4, game developers decided, this is on us. We're going to make these changes. They've done a fantastic job thus far. They're going to make mistakes along the way. But they've seemed to correct them quickly. Think about how short time ago the old reward system was, where you would just win 5 battles of a certain time and then you would get your chests, and that was all you had to do every day. They overhauled the entire reward system, and not only that, they've put out 2 major updates to that reward system based on feedback, the data they're looking at, how people are playing the game, how bots are playing the game, and they've put in some pretty major overhauls very, very quickly. So I trust them moving forward to keep making these types of decisions and reacting quickly when, something becomes exploitable. All right, I'm going to stop it there. That was my sort of take on bots. Didn't really have it planned. Sorry if that was a little rambly. But I appreciate you guys being here, and I'm curious your take. Specifically if you have like a unique take, or if you have a solution, I guess. Would be curious to hear it in the comments. Again, if you enjoy this content, if you learned anything new, it would be awesome if you can like and subscribe. I am Hawks21, and I cover Splinterlands. All right, have a great day. I will see you around the game.